Hi, everybody. I'm Engin Kirda. I'm one of the co-founders of Lastline and also the chief architect at Lastline right now. In this presentation, I would like to give you some information on the Backoff malware that we have been increasingly hearing about. It's a specific malware that actually attacks point-of-sale systems and steals data. So you've probably heard about this malware in the news. So what is Backoff? So it's the malware family that has been used in numerous breaches in the last year, and the Secret Service currently actually estimates that more than 1,000 US businesses have been affected. So this specific malware family targets the POS systems, and it's also interesting because it tries to actively evade detection. So the malware authors have created sophisticated malware, and they know that defense techniques are being used, and they're trying to evade them actively. So you've probably heard in the news that quite a number of high-profile organizations have been hit by this, and you've seen a dramatic escalation in the number of breached POS systems. So this is something that people had not been talking about last year, but suddenly this has actually become a huge problem. And it also demonstrates that any network system that you have can be attacked. So you need good defenses in place, especially for targeted specific attacks such as this one. So many of these POS payloads, like Backoff, actually evaded the installed defenses and alarms, and that's what makes this specific malware family interesting. So if you take a Backoff sample and you run it in our high-resolution malware analysis environment, and you then analyze the report that we produce, one thing you're going to notice is that this specific malware family has evasion, right? So it says here in the report that we produce that is trying to detect the analysis virtual environment by doing a timing analysis type of detection. It's a trick that malware authors often use. And we automatically classify it as malicious. So whatever technology you're using, it's important for it to be able to deal with evasive malware, such as Backoff. So in this specific case, Backoff actually uses timing evasion. So it's an anti-VM technique. They use code obfuscation to make it difficult for AV technologies that use signature-based detection. They also use rare and poorly emulated instructions to defeat simple emulators. And we actually see some of these simple emulators being used in some security products today. It also attempts to encrypt parts of the command and control traffic because they assume that somebody might be sniffing the traffic, and they're trying to make it more difficult to detect this malware family. So how is the attack deployed? Well, it's actually more straightforward than you might expect. The attackers scan the internet for remote desktop applications. They then launch a very well-known technique. They brute force login credentials, and often they are successful because they find administrative credentials that allow them to remotely log into these systems as admin, and then to deploy Backoff to remote POS systems. And once they're in the system, then they can start stealing interesting information, anything that's sensitive, such as credit card data. And they've actually been quite successful with this. So the malware sample we're looking at is somewhat sophisticated. It uses evasion, but the attack technique that is being used is not as sophisticated as you might expect. So this problem of evasion is not unique to Backoff. It's important to understand evasive malware. Because malware authors are not stupid, they know that sandboxes are popular. They know that dynamic analysis is what many security products are using today. And because code is being executed, malware authors actually have options to try to detect this dynamic analysis that's happening. So what is evasion? Well, evasive code is basically code that would change the behavior of the malware if it detects that it's running in a traditional sandbox, or if it detects that it's not the intended target, or it detects that some sort of detection technology is running in the background. So it basically changes its behavior, and in the reports that are produced by the security product, you would actually not be able to detect this malware. If you're using classic AV technology, and there's a good chance that you already have these systems installed, one question is, how effective are they in catching these evasive threats? We've actually done a study at Lastline Labs where we looked at, over a period of a year, we looked at how long it takes AV technology to catch current malware samples that are out there. And we actually found out that they're not very good at doing that, so it takes them quite a while, actually. And even after a year, there were still malware samples that were not detected by all AV vendors, right? And the reason for that is because most of these technologies are based on signatures. And because you can use simple techniques such as obfuscation, you can simply bypass this detection. And that's the reason why you constantly have to update your AV signature database. Otherwise, it makes it even more difficult to detect. So if you look at the evolution of security defenses, in the past we had plain viruses. Then they started using techniques such as polymorphism, packing to detect current AV technologies. And that's the reason why APT solutions started appearing. This started becoming an emerging market. So the idea that you are being targeted specifically and that somebody is using a zero-day type of attack against you. The problem in this domain right now is that the solutions that are being used are not evasion resistant. So we're seeing the next shift in the arms race, and we're actually seeing samples now, such as Backoff, that specifically do evasion because they know that some sort of sandboxing technology is being used. So there's a security gap there. So whatever technology you're using, it's important to address this issue and to ask the question, do they have some anti-evasion technologies in place as well? So there are three different ways to build a sandbox. So you could use virtualization, which is pretty straightforward and pretty easy. So you're basically executing all the code on the main hardware, on the CPU. So this might not be super easy to evade potentially if you're looking for certain instructions that are being emulated. But this actually does not give you a lot of visibility into the malware behavior, which means that they can then start using all sorts of code tricks to bypass your detection. If you're doing OS emulation, where you instrument the operating system, then you have better visibility, which means that you might see certain evasion attempts, but because you're instrumenting the operating system, it's also easy to detect. So you can still easily evade such systems. We at Lastline chose to do full system emulation, where every component we have, such as the CPU, the memory, is actually emulated software, which means that we can actually see every instruction that is being executed by the malware. So on the right-hand side, for example, you would see a classic last-time execution, where each instruction is executed, and you would then be able to see what that code is doing, right? If there is some sort of an evasion trick embedded there, you would have a chance to actually see that. For classic technologies, as you can see on the left-hand side, you would see high-level calls such as system calls for opening a file, reading something, closing a file, but you have areas in the code that are not visible to you because you lose control over the execution because everything is executed on the CPU. And you might have evasive behavior there. There might be code checks, stalling loops, timing checks that you would simply miss. So how would you secure your organization against PoS malware? Well, there are certain things you can do, but at the same time, there's no silver bullet. Security is usually a combination of things that you need to do. So at the PoS, you should accept EMV payments to limit the exposure in case of a breach. You should definitely use end-to-end encryption of the transaction to make it more difficult to leak information. You should detect and protect against malware and the command and control by using a technology such as the full system emulation approach with Lastline that actually allows you to detect some of this evasive behavior that is out there. If you're interested in detecting evasive malware in your network, then I would invite you to start your 30-day Lastline trial. It's free. Download it, register, try it out in your network, and see what we're able to detect for you. Thanks very much.